The stars beyond the viewing port looked different from this distance. Commander Tai Yang stood in the arrival bay of the Galactic Council station, trying not to show how nervous he felt. This was humanity's first real chance to join the wider galaxy. After 200 years of space travel and 50 years of faster-than-light engines, Earth had finally been invited to apply for Council membership. Tai Yang adjusted his uniform one more time. Behind him, his small team prepared to disembark. Ji Wu, his military advisor, checked her sidearm even though weapons were ceremonial here. Dayun, the communications officer, practiced her greeting in 3 different galactic languages. Yunwu, their cultural specialist, looked pale but determined. The docking clamps engaged with a soft thud. The airlock opened, and Tai Yang got his first real look at aliens who were not on a screen. The welcoming committee was small but impressive. A tall being with blue skin and forearms bowed slightly. Another creature that looked like it was made of living water rippled in what might have been a greeting. But Tai Yang's attention fixed on the figure in the center. She was breathtaking. Her skin seemed to be made of crystal that caught the light and split it into rainbows. She stood almost 7 feet tall, with a graceful bearing that spoke of centuries of refinement. Her eyes were the color of deep space, dark and infinite. She wore robes that seemed to flow like liquid silver. The 4-armed alien stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Kelrin of the Vanari Empire. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I welcome humanity to these halls. May I present Queen Lyrazeth, who oversees the Integration Committee." Tai Yang moved to greet the Queen, his hand extended in the human custom, but she had already turned away. Her robe swirled as she walked toward the exit, not even glancing in his direction. Kelrin's expression flickered with something that might have been embarrassment. "The Queen has many duties. She asks that I show you to your quarters." The first meeting of the Integration Committee took place 3 days later. The chamber was enormous, with seats arranged in a circle so that no species sat above another. Representatives from 47 civilizations filled the space, a riot of colors, shapes, and sizes that made Tai Yang's head spin. He took his assigned seat and prepared his opening statement. This was it. Humanity's chance to prove they belonged here. Queen Lyrazeth entered last. She moved to the central platform where the committee chair presided. Her presence commanded attention without effort. When she spoke, her voice filled the chamber like music. "We gather to consider the application of species classification human, origin planet Earth, for provisional membership in the Galactic Council. Let the proceedings begin." Tai Yang stood to present humanity's case. He spoke about Earth's history, their technological progress, and their desire to learn from older civilizations. He kept his words simple and honest. He knew humanity's past was violent, but they had learned. They had grown. They wanted to be better. Throughout his entire speech, Queen Lyrazeth never looked at him once. She studied her datapad. She consulted with her advisors. She gazed at the ceiling, but her eyes never met his. When questions came from the council members, she directed them through Kelrin. "Ambassador, please ask the human representative about their military capabilities. Ambassador, inquire about their resource management systems." Never Commander Tai Yang, never speaking to him directly. The pattern continued for weeks. Every committee session was the same. The Queen would not acknowledge his existence. She left chambers when he entered. She walked past him in corridors as if he were invisible. During one meeting, Tai Yang stood directly in her path to ask a question. She simply stopped, waited in complete silence until he moved aside, then continued on her way without a word. It was maddening. Other council members noticed. Some seemed amused. Others appeared confused. The Matharian delegate, a being of pure energy, asked Tai Yang if humans had somehow offended Vanari customs. A representative from the insectoid hive collective suggested that perhaps his pheromones were unpleasant to her species. Tai Yang researched everything he could find about the Vanari. They were one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy, with a culture spanning over 50,000 years. They valued art, philosophy, and diplomatic precision. They had never been conquered and had never waged aggressive war. Queen Lyrazeth herself was over 600 years old and was considered one of the wisest leaders in known space. Nothing in his research suggested why she would treat him this way. Maybe she just doesn't like humans, Ji Wu suggested one evening as they reviewed the day's session. "We're young, We're loud, we've got a terrible history of killing each other. Maybe she thinks we're beneath her notice. Then why accept our application at all? Daeun countered. The council could have rejected us before we even arrived. Someone wanted us here. Hyunwoo pulled up footage from the first committee meeting. He played it in slow motion. Look at this. Right when you start speaking, Commander. Watch her hands. Taeyang leaned closer. Queen Lyriseth's hands, normally graceful and still, were trembling. Just slightly, but definitely trembling. And here, Hyunwoo advanced the recording. When you mentioned Earth's oceans. See how her skin changes color? That's not normal for Vanari. I checked. That shimmer usually indicates strong emotion. So she's not indifferent, Taeyang said slowly. She's actively controlling herself. But why? Jiwoo asked. What did you do? Nothing. I haven't even been able to get close enough to offend her. Taeyang made a decision. He could not complete his mission if the committee chair refused to speak with him. Humanity's future in the galaxy might depend on understanding what was happening. He needed answers, and he was tired of being polite about it. He spent 2 days learning the Queen's schedule. She walked in the gardens of contemplation every evening at the same time. The gardens were considered neutral ground where politics were forbidden. It was the only place he might catch her alone. On the third evening, Taeyang waited among the bioluminescent plants. The garden glowed with soft blue and purple light. Strange flowers released scents that made him think of home, though he could not say why. Queen Lyriseth appeared like a ghost, silent and ethereal. She moved between the plants, touching their leaves with gentle fingers. She seemed more relaxed here, away from the council chamber. Taeyang stepped onto the path in front of her. Your Majesty, we need to talk. She stopped as if she had hit a wall. Her crystalline skin flashed through a dozen colors in rapid succession. For a long moment she said nothing. Then, without looking at him, she tried to walk around. He moved to block her path again. Have I offended you? Have humans done something to your people? I deserve to know why you won't even look at me. You deserve nothing from me, she said, and her voice was different here. Rougher, more emotional than in the council chamber. Leave me be. I can't. My people's future depends on this integration. You're the committee chair. Your approval matters more than anyone else's. If you won't talk to me, at least tell me why. Finally, she looked at him. Her eyes met his, and Taeyang felt something strange happen in his chest. Like his heart had skipped several beats at once. The garden seemed to grow brighter around them. Queen Lyriseth's expression was filled with something he could not name. Sadness, fear, longing. I am avoiding you, she said softly, to avoid falling in love with you. Then she was gone, sweeping past him before he could respond, leaving Taeyang standing alone among the glowing flowers, wondering if he had just imagined everything. Taeyang did not sleep that night. He lay in his quarters staring at the ceiling, replaying those words over and over in his mind. To avoid falling in love with you? It made no sense. They had barely spoken. She had spent weeks pretending he did not exist. How could she fall in love with someone she refused to acknowledge? By morning, he had convinced himself it was some kind of mistake. A translation error, maybe. Or a Vanari expression that meant something different than it sounded. He needed to understand, but the Queen had made it clear she would not explain. That left one option. Kaelrin. The Vanari ambassador had been kind to the human delegation from the start. More than kind, actually. He had offered guidance on council protocols, warned them about which species to avoid offending, and even invited them to a Vanari cultural exhibition. If anyone would help Taeyang understand, it would be him. Taeyang found Kaelrin in the archives, a massive library filled with data crystals from 1,000 worlds. The ambassador was studying something on a holographic display, his forearms moving independently as he sorted through information. Commander Taeyang, Kaelrin greeted him without looking up. I wondered when you would come to me. You knew I would? The entire station knows about your encounter in the gardens. The Queen's guards talk and servants gossip in every civilization. Kaelrin finally turned to face him. His expression was serious. You should not have confronted her. I needed answers. I still need them. Taeyang moved closer. She said she was avoiding me to avoid falling in love with me. What does that mean? Is it a Vanari saying? Some kind of diplomatic phrase? Kaelrin was quiet for a long moment. Then he gestured to the chairs near his workspace. Sit, Commander. What I am about to tell you is not secret, but it is not widely discussed outside my people. You must understand the weight of it. Tae-yang sat, his heart beating faster. The Vanari are an old species, Kaelrin began. We have had millions of years to evolve abilities that younger races have not developed. One of these abilities is what we call the resonance. It is a psychic sense that allows us to perceive emotional and intellectual compatibility with other beings. Like telepathy? No, more subtle than that. We do not read thoughts. We sense harmonies. Imagine meeting someone and knowing with absolute certainty that their mind works in perfect complement to yours, that their emotions resonate with yours on a frequency no one else can match, that understanding them is as natural as breathing. That sounds beautiful, Tae-yang said. It is. It is also terrifying. Kaelrin's voice grew heavy, because the resonance, when it occurs, is absolute. It cannot be unfelt, it cannot be ignored, and it is extraordinarily rare. Most Vanari live 800 years without ever experiencing it. Those who do find it describe it as both the greatest blessing and the greatest curse of their existence. Understanding began to dawn on Tae-yang. The Queen feels this resonance with me? The moment you entered the council chamber on your first day, yes. I was standing beside her. I saw what happened. Her skin flashed through every color in our emotional spectrum in less than a second. I have never seen her lose control like that. Not in the 300 years I have served her. Tae-yang's hands gripped the arms of his chair, but we haven't even spoken. How can she feel that way about someone she doesn't know? You misunderstand. The resonance is not love itself. It is the recognition of potential for perfect love. It tells a Vanari that this person, above all others in the galaxy, is the one they could bond with completely. But the actual bond, the actual love only forms if they allow it. If they spend time together. If they open themselves to it. So she's been avoiding me to prevent the bond from forming. Yes. And you must understand why, Commander. Queen Lyraseth is not merely a ruler. She is the heart of the Vanari Empire. 17 star systems look to her for guidance. She has responsibilities that span sectors. She is expected to make political marriages, to strengthen alliances, to put the needs of her people above her own desires. Always. Kaelrin stood and walked to the window overlooking the stars, and she is the chair of the Integration Committee. She must remain impartial. She cannot show favor to any species seeking membership. If it became known that she had formed a bond with humanity's representative, every decision she makes regarding your people would be questioned. It would create a scandal that could damage both your species and mine. So she's protecting us both, Tae-yang said quietly. She is doing her duty, as she always has. As she always will. Kaelrin turned back to him. I tell you this not to encourage you, but to help you understand. What the Queen is doing requires strength you cannot imagine. Every moment she is near you, the resonance pulls at her. It is like being constantly hungry but refusing to eat. She endures this pain for the good of her people and yours. That's not fair to her. No, but fairness is a luxury royalty rarely enjoys. Tae-yang left the archives with his mind spinning. He returned to his quarters and called an emergency meeting with his team. Ji-woo, Daeun, and Hyunwoo gathered around the table in his common room. He told them everything Kaelrin had explained. When he finished, silence filled the room. Finally, Ji-woo spoke. Sir, with respect, this is insane. Which part? All of it. The queen of the most powerful empire in the galaxy is suffering because she might fall in love with you. So she's just going to avoid you forever? That's the plan? That's the solution? It's not a solution, Hyunwoo said. It's a sacrifice. She's choosing duty over happiness. And we're supposed to just accept that? Daeun shook her head. Commander, you said she seemed in pain in the gardens. Is it right to let someone suffer like that just because of protocol and politics? What choice do we have? Tae-yang asked. If I pursue this, I could destroy her reputation. I could ruin humanity's chances at integration. The entire galaxy would see it as a manipulation. A young species taking advantage of a powerful ruler. Ji-woo leaned back in her chair. You know what I think? I think this is the most human problem I've ever heard of. What do you mean? The galaxy tells her she has to choose between duty and happiness, that she can't have both, that she has to suffer for the good of everyone else. That's very noble and very alien, but we're humans, sir. We don't accept impossible choices. We find a third option. We break the rules. We solve problems that everyone else thinks are unsolvable. Daeun nodded enthusiastically. She's right. Humans have always succeeded by refusing to play by the established rules. We couldn't reach the stars by conventional methods, so we invented new ones. We couldn't cure diseases with existing medicine, so we created entirely new fields of study. You're suggesting we find a way for the Queen to fulfill her duty and not suffer? Tae-yang asked. I'm suggesting we find a way for both of you to be happy without breaking the galaxy, Ji-woo said. Look, maybe there isn't a solution. Maybe this is actually impossible. But shouldn't we at least try? Isn't that what makes us human? We try even when it seems hopeless. Hyunwoo pulled up legal documents on his datapad. I've been reading council protocols. There are ways to request private diplomatic sessions. If you invoke Article 47, Section 12, the committee chair must meet with you to discuss concerns about the integration process. She can't refuse without creating an incident. That feels like a trick, Tae-young said. It's not a trick. It's using the system that exists. You have legitimate concerns about the integration process. Specifically, you're concerned that the committee chair appears to be avoiding interaction with your delegation, which may indicate bias. Tae-yang considered it. Every instinct told him to respect the Queen's wishes, to stay away as she clearly wanted. But Ji-woo was right. This was a human problem now, and humans did not give up on people who were suffering, even if those people were alien queens with impossibly complicated lives. All right, he said. Draft the formal request. Make it professional. Make it impossible to refuse. But make sure it's private. Whatever happens in that meeting, the rest of the galaxy doesn't need to know about it. 2 days later, Tae-yang received confirmation. Queen Lyrazeth had granted him a private diplomatic session. It would take place in her personal chambers aboard the Vanari flagship, away from the station's prying eyes. As Tae-yang prepared for the meeting, he felt fear and excitement mixing in his chest. He did not know what he would say to her. He did not know if there was any solution to this impossible situation. But he knew one thing for certain. He would not let the Queen suffer alone anymore. If they could not have happiness, at least they could face this together. That was the human way. And maybe, just maybe, it would be enough. The Vanari flagship was unlike any ship Tae-yang had ever seen. It did not look built so much as grown, with smooth curves and flowing lines that seemed organic. The walls glowed with soft internal light, and the air smelled like flowers he could not name. Everything about it spoke of a civilization that had perfected beauty over thousands of years. A guard escorted him through silent corridors to the Queen's private chambers. The door opened without sound, revealing a space that took his breath away. The walls were transparent, offering a view of the stars that seemed to stretch forever. Furniture made of crystalline material caught the starlight and scattered it into rainbows. In the center of it all stood Queen Lyrazeth. She had her back to him, looking out at the void. She wore simpler robes than in the council chamber, but she was no less magnificent. When she spoke, her voice was tired. You invoked Protocol 47. Clever. I could not refuse without raising questions I do not wish to answer. She still did not turn to face him. Say what you came to say, Commander. Then leave me in peace. I came to say that this isn't fair to you, Tae-yang replied. Kelleran told me about the resonance, about what you're enduring. Her shoulders tensed. He should not have told you that. Maybe not. But I'm glad he did. Because now I understand why you've been suffering, and I can't just ignore it. You must ignore it. We both must. Finally, she turned to face him, and Tae-yang felt that same strange pull in his chest he had experienced in the gardens. Her eyes were infinitely sad. This is not your burden to carry, human. Go back to your delegation. Complete your integration process. Forget this conversation. I can't do that. Why not? Because I'm human, Tae-yang said simply. And humans don't walk away from people who are in pain. Not if we can help. Something flickered across her face. Surprise maybe, or hope. But it vanished quickly. You cannot help. No one can. The resonance is not a problem to be solved. It simply is. But the suffering isn't inevitable. You're choosing to suffer by avoiding me. What if we find another way? There is no other way. Her voice grew sharp. I am the Queen of the Vanari Empire. Do you understand what that means? I have duties that span star systems. I have people who depend on me for protection, for guidance, for justice. I cannot abandon those responsibilities because my psychic senses have fixated on a human I barely know. I'm not asking you to abandon anything. Tae-yang moved closer, though he was careful to maintain a respectful distance. I'm asking if there's a way for you to fulfill your duties without torturing yourself. That's all. You make it sound simple. Maybe it is. Maybe we've been thinking about this wrong. He gestured to the chairs near the window. Will you sit with me? Just talk with me? If the resonance is real, if we're meant to understand each other perfectly, then surely we can figure something out together. Queen Lyraseth looked at him for a long moment. Then with visible reluctance she sat. Tae-Yang took the chair across from her, keeping the small table between them. What do you want from me, Commander? She asked. I want to understand. Tell me about the resonance, how it feels, what it means. Help me see this from your perspective. She was quiet, her crystalline fingers tracing patterns on the armrest. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft. Imagine that you have lived for 600 years. You have known thousands of people, loved some, respected many, but always there has been a distance, a wall you cannot cross. You are queen. You are leader. You are symbol. You are never just yourself. Tae-Yang listened without interrupting. Then one day a stranger walks into a room and suddenly that wall is gone. You look at him and you know, with certainty that terrifies you, that he could understand you completely, that with him, you would never be alone in the way you have always been alone, that he is the answer to a question you never dared to ask. Her eyes met his, and the sadness in them was overwhelming. That is the resonance. It is not love, not yet, but it is the promise of love beyond anything I have ever imagined, and I cannot have it. I cannot pursue it. Because I am not just Lyraseth. I am Queen Lyraseth, and the queen does not get to choose her own happiness. Why not? Tae-Yang asked quietly. Because that is what being queen means. Sacrifice, duty, always putting the empire first. That's what your people expect. But what do you want? The question seemed to startle her. What I want does not matter. It matters to me. Tae-Yang leaned forward. You said the resonance tells you I could understand you perfectly. So let me try. You're afraid that if you pursue this connection, other species will think you're biased toward humanity. They'll question your decisions. They'll see it as the Vanari Empire gaining undue influence over a young species. Your reputation will suffer, and maybe the integration process will fail because of the scandal. Yes, she said, all of that. But what if the integration process doesn't fail? What if we find a way to make this work that actually strengthens both our peoples? How? I don't know yet. But I think we can figure it out if we stop fighting this and start working together. He paused. You've spent weeks avoiding me because you're afraid of what might happen if we connect. But we're connecting right now and the galaxy hasn't fallen apart. This is different. This is private. So we keep it private while we find a solution. We meet like this, away from the station. We talk, we plan. We figure out how to honor both our duties and this resonance thing. And if we cannot find a solution, then at least we tried together. That's better than you suffering alone. Queen Lyraseth stood and walked to the window. The stars painted her in silver light. You do not understand what you are asking. The more time we spend together, the stronger the bond becomes. If we allow it to form completely, it cannot be undone. I will be bound to you for the rest of my very long life. Would that be so terrible? It would be selfish. It would be putting my desires above my empire's needs. Or, Tae-Yang said, standing as well, it would be finding a way to serve your empire while also not destroying yourself. There has to be a balance. The galaxy does not work on balance. It works on power and politics and careful diplomacy. The galaxy, you know, works that way. Maybe humans can show you a different way. We're very good at breaking systems that don't work and building better ones. She turned to look at him, and for the first time, he saw something other than sadness in her eyes. Curiosity. Tell me about humanity, Commander. Not the facts in your integration file. Tell me who you really are. So he did. He told her about Earth's long history of war and peace, of mistakes and redemption. He told her about growing up in a small coastal city, watching the ocean and dreaming of stars. He told her about joining the space program because he wanted to see what was possible, to push beyond what everyone said was humanity's limit. And she listened. Really listened. When he finished, she shared her own story. She spoke of being born into royalty, of learning from childhood that her life was not her own. She talked about the beauty of Vanari poetry, the way their art captured emotions that could not be spoken. She described the loneliness of the throne, surrounded by advisors and courtiers, but never truly known by anyone. Hours passed. The stars wheeled slowly beyond the window. They talked about duty and dreams, about fear and hope, about what it meant to lead and what it cost. With each exchange, Taeyang felt that pull in his chest growing stronger. He began to understand what she meant by resonance. Their minds did work in complement. Where she saw obstacles, he saw opportunities. Where he saw problems, she saw solutions. It was like finding a missing piece he had not known was gone. Finally, as the station's artificial dawn began to brighten the sky beyond the window, Queen Lyraseth said, "I should send you away. Every moment we spend together makes this harder. But you won't send me away," Taeyang said. It was not a question. "No, I am apparently too weak to do what I should." But she was almost smiling. "That's not weakness. That's being human. I am not human. No, but maybe spending time with one isn't the worst thing. We're growing on you." She did smile then, and it transformed her face. "You are either very brave or very foolish, Commander Taeyang. I've been told I'm both." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Will you meet with me again? We still need to find a solution to this situation." "Yes," she said quietly. "But Commander, when we are alone like this, you may call me Lyra. Just Lyra. Then you should call me Taeyang." As he left her chambers and made his way back to the station, Taeyang realized something had changed. The fear was gone. The uncertainty remained, but now it felt like a challenge rather than a threat. They had taken the first step together. Now they just needed to figure out where that path would lead. Over the following weeks, a pattern developed. Publicly in the council chamber, Queen Lyraseth remained distant and professional. She still did not speak to Taeyang directly during sessions, still conducted all business through intermediaries. To the other delegates, nothing had changed, but 3 times a week after the station's evening cycle, Taeyang would quietly board a shuttle to the Vanari flagship. The guards had learned to expect him. They would escort him to Lyra's private chambers without question or comment. Whatever they thought of these visits, they kept to themselves. In those private hours, Taeyang and Lyra talked. They discussed everything and nothing. She taught him about Vanari history, about the art of diplomacy that had kept her people at peace for millennia. He shared human philosophy, music from Earth, and the strange humor that had helped his species survive impossible odds. The bond between them grew. Taeyang could feel it like a living thing, warm and constant in his chest. Sometimes when Lyra spoke, he knew what she would say before the words left her mouth. When he struggled to express an idea, she would finish his thought perfectly. It should have been frightening. Instead, it felt like coming home. But the problem remained. They still had no solution. "The other empires are watching the integration process closely," Lyra said one evening. They sat by her window as usual, the stars providing their light. "The collective believes humans are too aggressive. The Merchants Guild thinks you will disrupt their trade networks. The academic circles worry you will not respect ancient knowledge. So they're looking for reasons to reject us." Taeyang said, "Yes. And if they discover that I have formed a personal connection with humanity's representative, they will claim bias. They will say the integration process was corrupted from the start. Your people will be barred from the council, possibly for generations. Then we make sure they don't discover it until we have a solution." Taeyang was thinking out loud now, the way he always did when facing a tactical problem. We need something that makes our connection an asset instead of a liability. Something that benefits both our peoples in a way the galaxy can't deny, such as an alliance, a formal partnership between the Vanari Empire and humanity. He stood and began pacing, his mind racing, not based on conquest or control but on mutual benefit. What does your empire need that humanity can provide? Lyra considered this. Innovation, adaptability. The Vanari have grown comfortable in our ways. We have perfected what we do. But perfection can become stagnation. Younger species bring fresh perspectives, new approaches to old problems. And what humanity needs is guidance, stability. We've barely left our own system. We make mistakes because we don't know better, not because we're malicious. We need teachers. A teacher-student relationship would be seen as unequal. No, a partnership of equals who bring different strengths. You have wisdom and patience. We have creativity and determination. Together we could accomplish things neither could alone. Lyra's expression was thoughtful. You are suggesting that our bond becomes the foundation for something larger. That what draws us together as individuals could also bind our peoples. Exactly. If we present it right, if we show the Council that this partnership benefits the entire galaxy, then our connection stops being a scandal and becomes proof of concept. It is ambitious. Humans are good at ambitious. Tae-yang sat down again. But we need support. We can't do this alone. Who in the council would back such a proposal? Kael'ren would. He believes in your people. The collective might support it. They value efficiency, and a Vanari human alliance would be efficient. The academic circles could be swayed if we frame it as a cultural exchange program. She paused. But the Merchants Guild will oppose us. They profit from keeping species separated, from controlling resource distribution, and there are other empires who will see this as the Vanari gaining too much influence. Then we need to address those concerns directly, make the alliance open to other species, create frameworks where any civilization can partner with another based on mutual benefit, not just power dynamics. They talked deep into the night, building the framework of their proposal. It was complicated, ambitious, and would require perfect execution. But for the first time since arriving at the council station, Tae-yang felt hope. The next morning, he called his team together again. Jiwoo, Daeun, and Hyunwoo listened as he outlined the plan. This is going to require support from Earth, Daeun said. We need the government to approve this alliance framework. They might hesitate. Tying humanity's future so closely to one empire could seem risky. Then we convince them it's not risky, it's smart, Jiwoo replied. We're offering partnership with the most stable, most respected civilization in the galaxy. That's better than trying to navigate galactic politics alone. Hyunwoo was already pulling up documents. I can draft the proposal. But Commander, you know the personal element will come out eventually, you and the Queen. Are you prepared for that? Tae-yang nodded. If we do this right, by the time it comes out, the alliance will already be working. It won't matter how it started if the results speak for themselves. And if it does matter, Jiwoo asked, then we deal with it together. That's what this whole thing is about. Finding a way forward that doesn't require either of us to sacrifice everything. Over the next 2 weeks, Tae-yang and his team worked on the proposal while he continued his private meetings with Lyra. She brought in Kael'ren, trusting him with the full truth of what they were attempting. The ambassador listened to their plan, and then surprised them both by laughing. I have served the Vanari throne for 3 centuries, he said. I have seen queens and kings make thousands of decisions. This is the first time I have seen one fight for something personal. It is about time. With Kael'ren's help, they refined the proposal. They created frameworks for technology sharing, cultural exchange programs, and joint research initiatives. They outlined dispute resolution processes and safeguards against exploitation. They made it comprehensive and bulletproof, but they also made it honest. At its heart, the proposal acknowledged a simple truth. The galaxy was changing. Younger species were reaching the stars faster than ever before. The old ways of isolated empires and careful distance were becoming obsolete. The future belonged to those who could build bridges across differences. We are proposing a new paradigm, Lyra said during one of their sessions. She was reading through the latest draft. The council will resist this. Change frightens those who are comfortable. Let them resist, Tae-yang said. We have truth on our side. This is better for everyone, not just us. You have such faith in doing the right thing, don't you? She looked at him and her expression was complex. I have faith in duty, in responsibility, in doing what must be done. You have taught me to have faith in what could be. And you've taught me that some things are worth fighting for even when everyone says it's impossible. Lyra stood and moved to where he sat. She reached out and for the first time since they had begun these meetings, she touched him. Her crystalline fingers rested lightly on his hand. The touch sent something like electricity through Tae-yang's whole body. The bond is almost complete, she said softly. I can feel it. Soon it will be irreversible. Are you certain this is what you want? Once fully formed, this connection will last as long as I live. 800 years, perhaps more. You will be bound to me across that entire span. I know, Tae-yang said. And yes, I'm certain. Why? Because in all my life, I've never met anyone who made me want to be better just by existing. Because when I'm with you, impossible problems seem solvable. Because you're brilliant and strong and you care so deeply about your people that you were willing to suffer to protect them. He turned his hand to hold hers properly. Because the resonance isn't wrong, Lyra. We do understand each other perfectly. Tears formed in her eyes, crystalline drops that caught the starlight. I was so afraid, she whispered, I know. But you don't have to be afraid anymore. We're doing this together. The next day, they presented their proposal to Earth's government via quantum communication. Admiral Subin, who oversaw humanity's space programs, listened to their presentation with a stern expression. "You're asking us to tie our fate to an alien empire based on the personal connection between our commander and their queen," Subin said when they finished. "That's a significant risk. It's also a significant opportunity," Taeyang replied. "The Vanari Empire has resources, knowledge, and political influence that would take us centuries to develop on our own. They're offering genuine partnership. We'd be foolish to refuse. And your personal feelings for the Queen? How do we know those aren't clouding your judgment? Because I've brought my team into every decision. Because we've built safeguards into the proposal. And because, Admiral, my feelings don't change the fact that this alliance is good for humanity." Subin studied him through the hologram. Finally, she nodded. "Very well. You have Earth's support. But, Commander, don't make us regret trusting you." "I won't, ma'am." With Earth's approval secured, they were ready for the next step. They would present the alliance proposal to the Galactic Council. It would be the most important presentation of Taeyang's life. Everything they had worked for, everything they hoped to build, would depend on how the galaxy responded. But as Taeyang prepared his remarks, he felt no. The council chamber had never felt so large. Taeyang stood at the central platform, where speakers addressed the full assembly. Above him the seats rose in tiers, filled with representatives from 47 civilizations. Every eye in the galaxy seemed focused on him. Queen Lyrazeth sat in the committee chair's position, but today she looked directly at him. They had agreed that hiding their connection during this presentation would undermine everything they were trying to build. The galaxy would see the truth, and they would explain why that truth mattered. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Taeyang began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "I stand before you today to present a proposal that will reshape how we think about galactic cooperation. But before I explain the framework, I must share something personal." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Kaelrin, sitting in the Vanari section, nodded encouragingly. "When I arrived at this station 2 months ago, I did not understand why Queen Lyrazeth avoided me. I thought perhaps I had offended her, or that my people had somehow failed to meet Vanari standards. The truth, as I have since learned, is far more complex." He gestured toward Lyra. "The Vanari possess a psychic ability called the resonance. It allows them to sense deep compatibility with other beings. It is rare, occurring perhaps once in a lifetime, and when it occurs, it is absolute. Queen Lyrazeth felt this resonance with me the moment we met." The murmurs grew louder. Some delegates looked shocked. Others seemed curious. The Merchants Guild representative leaned forward with obvious interest. "She avoided me," Taeyang continued, "because she is a queen, because she has duties that must come before personal desires, because she feared that a connection between herself and humanity's representative would compromise the integration process." "This is highly irregular," the collective speaker interrupted. "The committee chair should have recused herself immediately." "Perhaps," Taeyang agreed, "but that would have assumed the resonance was a problem. We believe it is actually a solution." He activated the holographic display. Images appeared around him showing data, charts, and frameworks. The resonance showed Queen Lyrazeth and myself that our peoples are compatible in ways that go beyond individual connection. The Vanari Empire and humanity share complementary strengths. Where they have wisdom and stability, we have innovation and adaptability. Where we have energy and determination, they have patience and refined knowledge. You are asking the Council to approve an alliance based on romantic feelings. The Merchant Guild representative's voice dripped with disdain. "I am asking the Council to recognize that sometimes personal connections reveal larger truths," Taeyang replied. "But I am not asking you to take that on faith. I am asking you to examine the proposal itself." He walked them through it. Technology, sharing agreements that would benefit multiple species. Cultural exchange programs open to any civilization that wanted to participate. Joint research initiatives addressing problems that affected the entire galaxy. Resource distribution frameworks that would reduce the Merchants Guild's monopolistic control. That last point caused an uproar. The guild representative stood, his scales flushing an angry orange. This proposal undermines the economic structures that have maintained galactic stability for millennia. It undermines structures that benefit a few at the expense of many, Lyra said, speaking for the first time. Her voice cut through the noise like a blade. The Merchants Guild has grown wealthy by controlling access to resources and technology. This proposal creates new pathways for cooperation that do not require your intermediation. The Vanari Empire stands to gain significantly from this arrangement, another delegate noted. How do we know this is not simply an attempt to expand your influence? Because the framework is open, Ta Yang said. Any empire can propose similar partnerships with any other species. We are not claiming exclusive rights. We are creating a template that others can follow. Hyunwoo had prepared data showing how such partnerships could benefit various civilizations. Daun had drafted communication protocols. Jiwoo had outlined security considerations. They had anticipated every objection and prepared responses for each. But what truly swayed the chamber was something they had not planned. Kael'ren stood from the Vanari section. I have served Queen Lyrazeth for 300 years, he said. I have watched her sacrifice personal happiness countless times for the good of our empire. I have seen her marry for political advantage, form friendships based on strategic value, and suppress her own desires to fulfill her duty. She has been the perfect queen. He turned to face Lyra. But perfect queens are still people. And this queen has found something that makes her stronger, not weaker. I have watched her work with Commander Tae Yang. I have seen how their minds complement each other, how they solve problems together that neither could solve alone. If that is what the resonance creates, then we should celebrate it, not condemn it. A representative from the academic circle stood next. She was an ancient being whose species had been in the council since its founding. I have studied the patterns of galactic development for 400 years. New species join the council, struggle to adapt, and often fail. They either isolate themselves or become absorbed into larger empires. What the humans and Vanari propose is different. It is mentorship without domination, partnership without loss of identity. It is unprecedented, the collective's speaker said. Yes, the ancient scholar replied. And perhaps that is exactly what we need. The galaxy changes whether we wish it to or not. We can evolve with it or be left behind. The debate continued for hours. Tai Yang answered questions until his throat was raw. Lyra defended their proposal with the precision and eloquence of 6 centuries of experience. Kael'ren provided historical context. Other allies they had carefully cultivated spoke in support. Finally, as the station's day cycle was ending, the vote was called. The approval process was complex. The proposal needed majority support from the full council, but it also required specific approval from the Integration Committee. Additionally, any empire could invoke a veto if they felt the proposal threatened galactic stability. Tae Yang held his breath as the votes were displayed. Green lights for approval, red for rejection, yellow for abstention. Green lights dominated the display. The academic circles voted in favor. The collective, after long deliberation, approved. Several smaller empires that had been silent throughout the debate now showed their support. The red lights were fewer than expected. The Merchants Guild voted against, as anticipated. A handful of conservative empires that resisted any change rejected the proposal. But they were a minority. The yellow lights were mostly from empires that wanted to observe before committing. That was acceptable. They were not blocking the proposal, just watching carefully. The vote is concluded, Lyra announced, and her voice trembled slightly with emotion. The alliance framework between the Vanari Empire and humanity is approved. Additionally, the framework is established as a template for future partnerships between any willing civilizations. Integration of humanity into the Galactic Council will proceed under Vanari sponsorship. The chamber erupted. Some delegates cheered, others argued. The Merchants Guild representative stormed out. But the decision was made. Tae Yang felt his legs go weak with relief. Jiwoo was hugging Da-un. Hyunwoo was grinning like a madman. They had done it. Against all odds, they had actually done it. After the chamber emptied, Lyra found Taeyang in one of the observation corridors. They stood together, watching the ships moving around the station. "We gambled everything on this," she said quietly. "And we won. Perhaps. Or perhaps we have simply bought ourselves time to prove it was worth the risk." She turned to face him. "The difficult work begins now. We must make this alliance everything we promised it would be. We will." Taeyang took her hand. The bond between them was complete now, a constant warmth that felt as natural as breathing. "Together. Together," she agreed. Then softer. "I spent 600 years believing that duty and happiness could never coexist. You showed me I was wrong. You showed me that some things are worth fighting for even when the whole galaxy says it is impossible." They stood in comfortable silence, hands linked, watching their two peoples begin to build something new. The Vanari flagship and Earth's delegation ship were already moving into formation, preparing for the first official exchange under the new alliance. "What happens now?" Lyra asked. "Now we prove that love and duty can make each other stronger," Taeyang said. "We show the galaxy that connection is not weakness but the foundation of true strength. We build a partnership that others will want to emulate." "That sounds very human. Then we are teaching you well." She laughed, a sound like crystal chimes. "Or perhaps you are becoming more Vanari. Maybe we are becoming something new. Something neither of us could have been alone." Lyra rested her head on his shoulder, a gesture of trust and affection that would have been unthinkable months ago. "The galaxy will watch us closely. They will look for signs that we are failing, that this was a mistake." "Let them watch," Taeyang said. "We will show them what is possible when 3 weeks after the alliance approval." Taeyang was reviewing supply manifests when the alarms began screaming. Red lights flooded the council station corridors. The automated voice repeated the same message in dozens of languages. "Emergency. All personnel to designated safe zones. This is not a drill." Taeyang was running before his mind fully processed what was happening. He grabbed his communicator. "Jiwoo report. Unknown vessels just dropped out of hyperspace." Jiwoo's voice crackled with static. "They are not responding to hails. Commander, they are firing on the station." The floor shook. Somewhere in the distance, an explosion echoed through the metal walls. Taeyang changed direction, heading for the command center instead of the safe zones. Leaders did not hide while their people were in danger. The command center was chaos. Representatives from every species shouted in their various languages. Display screens showed multiple ships surrounding the station, their weapons tearing through the shields that had been designed for ceremonial protection, not warfare. Kaelrin stood at the center console trying to coordinate a response. His forearms moved frantically across the controls. When he saw Taeyang, relief flashed across his face. "Commander, thank the ancestors. We need military expertise. Station security is overwhelmed." Taeyang pushed through to the console. The attacking ships were unlike anything he had seen before. Organic in appearance, with weapons that seemed to grow from their hulls. "Who are they?" "The Catharan Collective," Kaelrin said. "A hive mind species. They opposed humanity's integration. They see your kind as a threat to galactic stability." Another explosion rocked the station. On the screens, Taeyang watched a section of the outer hull tear away into space. "How many casualties?" "Unknown. Communications are failing in multiple sectors. We are trying to evacuate civilians, but the safe zones were never designed for an attack of this scale." Taeyang's mind shifted into combat mode. He had trained for situations like this, though never in a space station filled with alien civilians. "Where is Queen Lyra, Seth?" "The Vanari flagship is engaging the attackers, but they are outnumbered 3-1. The Queen is coordinating the defense from here." "Show me." A smaller screen flickered to life, showing Lyra in what must have been the station's strategic command room. She was surrounded by advisors, her face set in determined lines. Through the bond, Taeyang could feel her fear and her iron control over that fear. He opened a direct channel. "Lyra, I am in the civilian command center. Tell me what you need." Her eyes found the camera. For just a moment, relief crossed her features. "Taeyang, the Catharan are using bioweapons that our systems were not designed to counter. They are targeting life support in specific sections. We have hundreds of delegates trapped. I can help with that, but I need access to station security systems." Sending authorization now. Taeyang turned to find his team already assembled. Jiwoo had her weapon drawn, though it would be useless against ships in space. Taeyun was setting up a portable communications array. Hyunwoo looked terrified but stood his ground. All right, Taeyang said. We are going to do what humans do best. We are going to solve the impossible problem. He pulled up the station schematics. Jiwoo, I need you to coordinate evacuation routes. Use human tactical doctrine, not station protocols. Think three-dimensional. On it, sir. Taeyun, hack into the Catharan communications if you can. I want to know what they are saying to each other. That is probably illegal, sir. So is attacking a neutral diplomatic station. Do it. Yes, sir. Hyunwoo, you studied xenopsychology. How does a hive mind think? Hyunwoo pulled up his notes with shaking hands. They prioritize the collective over individuals. They make decisions through consensus. They see diversity as chaos that must be eliminated or controlled. So they are predictable. They will attack in patterns. Taeyang studied the attack vectors. They are not trying to destroy the station. They are trying to force surrender. Another explosion. Closer this time. The lights flickered. Kaleran was shouting orders to station security, but it was clear they were losing ground. The Catharan ships were too numerous, too coordinated. The station's defensive weapons were meant to ward off pirates, not military assaults. Taeyang made a decision. Open a channel to all human personnel on the station. Daun worked her console. You are on, Commander. This is Commander Taeyang to all human delegation members. We have trained for hostile situations. Now we use that training. Security teams implement Defensive Protocol 7. Engineering, reroute power from non-essential systems to shields. Medical, set up triage in the central hub. Everyone else assist with civilian evacuation. Show this galaxy what humans can do. Responses came flooding back. Admiral Subin's security detail was already moving. The engineering crew had ideas for boosting the shields. Human medical personnel were coordinating with alien doctors. Within minutes, the chaos began to organize. Jiwoo's evacuation routes were faster than the standard protocols because she thought in terms of combat movement, not orderly cues. The human engineers jury-rigged the shield generators in ways that made the station's technicians nervous, but worked. On the main screen, Taeyang watched the Vanari flagship taking heavy damage. Lyra's ship was powerful, but even the Vanari could not fight 3 ships at once. He opened the channel to Lyra again. I need you to pull back. Your flagship is taking too much damage. I cannot abandon the station. You are not abandoning it. You are repositioning. Trust me. Through the bond, he sent her what he was planning. She hesitated for only a second, then gave the order. The Vanari flagship pulled away from the engagement, moving to a position that looked like retreat. The Catharan ships pursued exactly as Taeyang had predicted. Hive minds were efficient but not creative. They saw an enemy retreating and followed standard tactical doctrine. Taeyun, have you cracked their communications? Yes, sir. They are coordinating strikes on the civilian sectors. They want to force us to surrender by threatening innocent lives. How very predictable. Taeyang pulled up the station's resource management system. Hyunwoo, you said they see diversity as chaos. Let us give them chaos. He started rerouting systems randomly. Life support flickered on and off in empty sections. Power surged and dropped across the station. On the Catharan communications, confusion rippled through their coordinated commands. They are trying to find the pattern, Daun reported. They think we are implementing some kind of defense protocol. Good. Keep them confused. Jiwoo, are the civilians clear from sectors 7 through 12? Confirmed. Those sections are empty. Excellent. Taeyang opened a channel to Lyra. On my mark, target these coordinates. He sent the data. Every Catharan ship is positioned to hit what they think are occupied civilian areas. We are going to show them those areas are empty, and their ships are now in a very bad position. Lyra understood immediately. Through the bond, he felt her grim satisfaction. Confirmed. Ready on your mark? Taeyang watched the Catharan ships move into position. They were so focused on the station, so confident in their coordinated assault, that they did not see the trap closing. Mark. The Vanari flagship opened fire, but not at the Catharan ships. At the station itself, at the sections Taeyang had identified. The explosions were controlled, designed to create debris fields that the Catharan ships now had to navigate. At the same time, the station's defensive weapons, boosted by human engineering, fired in patterns that had nothing to do with military doctrine and everything to do with chaos. The Catharan ships, caught between debris and unpredictable fire, broke formation. "Now they are vulnerable," Jiwoo said. Reinforcements arrived at that moment. 3 human military ships dropped out of hyperspace, followed by Vanari fleet units. Admiral Subin's voice came over the channel. "This is Admiral Subin of Earth's Defense Force. Stand down or be destroyed." The Catharan ships tried to regroup, but their advantage was gone. Faced with fresh military forces and a station that refused to behave predictably, they retreated into hyperspace. Silence fell over the command center. Then Kylran started laughing. "You deliberately made the station look dysfunctional to confuse them. That is the most human strategy I have ever witnessed." "It worked," Taeyang said, letting himself feel the exhaustion that came with battle. "That is what matters." He made his way to where Lyra was coordinating damage control. When she saw him, she left her advisors and came to him. In front of everyone, she embraced him. "We could have lost," she said quietly. "But we did not." He held her close. "We fought together. We protected people together. That is what this alliance is about." Around them, the command center was filled with beings from dozens of species, all working together to help the wounded and repair the damage. Humans worked alongside Vanari. The collective's representatives coordinated with Earth's engineers. The academic circle's scholars helped organize medical supplies. The attack had been meant to divide them. Instead, it had shown the galaxy what cooperation could accomplish. Later, after the immediate crisis had passed, Taeyang stood with Lyra in the observation corridor. The station was scarred but intact. Ships from multiple empires were bringing supplies and aid. The Catharan wanted to prove that humans were dangerous. The council chamber had never been so full. Every seat was occupied, and representatives who normally sent deputies now attended in person. The attack on the station had changed everything. Now, 3 weeks after the Catharan assault, the full council gathered to discuss not just humanity's integration, but the future of galactic cooperation itself. Taeyang stood beside Lyra at the central platform. They had agreed to present their final case together. No more intermediaries. No more hiding. The galaxy had seen them fight side by side. Now they would show what that partnership truly meant. "Honored members," Lyra began, her voice carrying the authority of 600 years of leadership. "We stand at a crossroads. The attack proved that the old order is failing. Isolated empires competing for resources and influence create vulnerabilities that hostile forces can exploit. The Catharan attacked because they feared change," Taeyang continued. "They saw humanity's integration as a threat to their vision of galactic stability, a vision based on control and uniformity. But their attack revealed something they did not expect. It revealed strength in diversity. Holographic images appeared around them, showing footage from the battle. Human engineers working with Vanari technicians. The collective's representatives coordinating evacuations. Species that had never cooperated before working together to save lives. "You all saw what happened," Taeyang said. "When faced with a common threat, we did not fracture. We united. And we won not because any single species was superior, but because we combined our strengths." A representative from the Merchants Guild stood. "Commander, you paint a pretty picture, but the reality is that the Vanari Empire and humanity have formed an exclusive alliance, one that threatens existing economic and political structures." "Then form your own alliances," Lyra replied. "The framework we created is open to all. Any species can partner with any other based on mutual benefit. We are not claiming special privileges. We are offering a template that undermines centuries of diplomatic tradition," another delegate argued. "The Council has always maintained balance through careful separation of powers. What you propose is chaos." Kailaran stood from the Vanari section. "Balance through separation is stability through stagnation. The galaxy changes. New species reach the stars every generation. We can either adapt to that reality or be overwhelmed by it." The ancient scholar who had supported them before rose. "I have seen this pattern before. 10,000 years ago, when my people first joined the Council, there was similar resistance. We were told we were too different, that our ways would disrupt the established order. But we adapted, and the galaxy grew stronger for it. The difference," the collective speaker said, "is that your integration took centuries. The humans ask for full acceptance after barely 2 months. Because the galaxy does not have centuries," Taeyang said. "The Catharan proved that. Threats are evolving faster than our institutions. We need new approaches, new partnerships, new ways of working together. Humanity does not ask for special treatment. We ask for the chance to contribute, to learn from you while sharing what we have learned. And what have you learned, Commander? The Merchants Guild representative's voice was mocking. What wisdom can a species barely off their home world offer civilizations that have traveled the stars for millennia? Taeyang smiled. We have learned that impossible problems are just problems that need creative solutions. We have learned that diversity is not weakness but the foundation of adaptability. We have learned that sometimes the answer is not to follow the rules, but to change them. We have also learned, he continued, his voice growing stronger, that the greatest strength comes not from isolation but from connection, from caring about each other enough to fight together, to protect each other, to build something better together. That is what makes us human. And we believe that is what will make the galaxy stronger. Lyra stepped forward. I will be honest with this council. My connection with Commander Taeyang began with the resonance, a Vanari psychic phenomenon that recognized our compatibility. But what has grown between us goes beyond that initial connection. We have built a partnership based on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine affection. She looked at Taeyang, and the bond between them hummed with warmth. Some of you will see this as scandalous, a queen falling in love with a representative from a species seeking membership. But I ask you to look at the results. The alliance we have built benefits both our peoples. The frameworks we have created can benefit all peoples. The love I have found strengthens me as a leader rather than weakens me. And I ask you to consider, Taeyang added, whether we want a galaxy ruled by cold calculation and careful distance, or one where leaders can be both dutiful and human, where doing what is right does not require sacrificing everything that makes life worth living. The chamber fell silent. Then unexpectedly, a delegate from a species that had been silent throughout the entire process stood. She was small, barely 3 feet tall, from a planet humanity had never heard of. I come from a world that applied for council membership 50 years ago, she said in a soft voice. We were rejected, told we were too small, too weak, too different, that we needed to develop for another few centuries before we could contribute. We went home disappointed. We watched the galaxy from the outside. She gestured at the images still floating in the chamber. Then we saw this. We saw humans and Vanari fighting together. We saw species that barely spoke to each other working side by side. We saw what was possible, and we thought, maybe the galaxy is finally ready for something new. Other delegates began to stand. A representative from the insectoid hive. An energy being from a dimension humanity could barely perceive. A crystalline entity whose species had no name in human language. One by one they spoke. Some shared their own stories of rejection or marginalization. Others talked about the failures of the current system. All of them expressed a desire for change. The vote, when it finally came, was not just about humanity's integration. It was about something larger. It was about whether the galaxy would cling to the old ways or embrace a new paradigm. Green lights began to appear on the display, more than Taeyang had dared hope. The academic circles voted in favor. The collective approved. Dozens of smaller empires that had been watching carefully now showed their support. Even some who had opposed them before changed their votes. The ancient scholar smiled as her empire's light turned green. Several members of the Merchants Guild, seeing the tide turning, abstained rather than oppose. The vote is concluded, Lyra announced, and her voice was thick with emotion. Humanity is granted full membership in the Galactic Council. Additionally, the Alliance framework is formally recognized as an approved method for interstellar cooperation. Any species may propose similar partnerships subject to council review. The chamber erupted in sound. Some cheered. Some applauded in their various ways. A few still looked skeptical, but even they could not deny what had been achieved. Taeyang felt Jiwoo's hand on his shoulder. Dayun was crying. Hyunwoo looked like he might faint from relief. Behind them, Admiral Subin's image on the holographic link showed the Admiral wiping her eyes. But it was Lyra's presence through the bond that Taeyang felt most strongly. Joy, pride, love, and relief all mixed together. They had done it. Against impossible odds, they had actually done it. The formal ceremony took place the next day. Taeyang stood before the council and swore humanity's oath of membership. He promised to uphold the council's principles, to work for peace, to respect all species, and to contribute to the common good. When he finished, Lyra stepped forward with a ceremonial crystal that marked humanity's acceptance. She placed it in his hands, and as she did, she whispered, "I am so proud of you, of us, of what we have built." "We are just beginning," he whispered back. "This is day one." The celebration afterward filled the station. Species that had barely interacted before now mingled freely. Human music played alongside Vanari harmonies. Food from 100 worlds was shared. The station, scarred from battle but repaired through cooperation, had become a symbol of what was possible. Taeyang found a quiet moment with Lyra on the observation deck, their favorite spot. They watched the ships coming and going, representing a galaxy that was slowly, carefully learning to work together. "What happens now?" Lyra asked. "We have achieved what we set out to do. Humanity is in the Council. The Alliance is approved. Where do we go from here?" "We make it work," Taeyang said. "We implement the programs we promised. We show the galaxy that this partnership is everything we claimed it would be. We prove that love and duty can coexist. And us? What about us?" He turned to face her fully. "I love you. That is not going to change. The bond between us is complete and will last as long as you live." 800 years, you said? Perhaps more. Then we have time. Time to build this alliance into something great. Time to show the galaxy a new way. Time to be together without apology or shame. You make it sound simple. It will not be simple. There will be challenges. There will be people who doubt us or try to undermine what we have built. There will be days when we question if we made the right choice.